This week I was inspired by our CEO's newsletter, which, by the way, if you aren't subscribed to the newsletter, you have to check it out. Honestly, in this industry, in this field, I don't know if there's anything quite like it, so please check it out. But I was inspired by what he had written about. And this week in our all teams meeting, he brought up the question of, if you had to do a TED Talk, what would you right now be able to talk about? And everyone shared, what they individually feel passionate or driven to speak to. And then when it got to him, he was very clear and quick and precise in what he said. And it was, deathbed conversations. And he wasn't talking about necessarily the conversations that you would have on your deathbed with others, but more of an introspective conversation that you would have with yourself. And it reminded me of many years ago when I was in a treatment facility. This program, you had to complete certain steps along the way to get more freedoms. And I had finally reached the point after a couple months where they said, okay, Roman, you can go out there and start looking for a job. Now, at the time, I was working with a mentor who was like, absolutely not. You are unemployable. You shouldn't have a job anywhere. And so he suggested I do something similar, but work for free, which at the time wasn't super ideal for me. But I took it and ran with it and decided to volunteer. And I ended up volunteering some time at a hospice center in San Diego. And basically what I would do is I would go in and I would meet with these people who were, at the end of their life. And I would play chess with them and read books and just hang out with them. And I realized and learned so much through that experience. One of the things that I realized is that most people at the end of their lives, they just want someone to talk to. Someone to share that with. A lot of the people at this facility, their family wasn't close. Their kids and grandkids lived in different parts of the world. So they weren't having a lot of visitors. And so I was, to a certain extent, the person to talk to. And what they wanted to talk to more than anything was about their life. In that process, I heard so many stories from people and their careers and decisions that they made and relationships that they had and jobs that they took and travel and all these things about their life. And it was an incredible experience. Now, the truly transformative experience in that was that I realized that there are really three types of people who are at the end of their life. Unfortunately, the overwhelming majority of people who are at the end of their life, who knows that their time is up, have a sense of regret, remorse, and guilt. They talk about the things they regret not doing, the trips they didn't take, and the time they didn't spend with their family, and they regret not kissing that girl or not taking that job or not taking that risk to go across the country and pursue that thing that they really wanted to. And it was so sad to see, these people at the end of their life realizing that was it. Now, there was maybe 10% who were just, old age had taken over and they didn't fully understand where they were, what was going on. And then there was probably 10% of people who would sit down with me and they'd say, Roman, I did all of the things I wanted to do in life. I saw the things I wanted to see. I took the chances and the risks, and I pursued that relationship, and I married that girl, and we had those kids, and I built that home, and they were just ready, content, and at peace. And I realized then that no matter what it takes for me personally, I want to be in that latter group. I want to be at the end of my life content, at peace with the decisions and choices I made, and ready for what's next. Most devastatingly, the thing I learned was that there is a fate worse than death. And that fate is to be on your deathbed, realizing that there's no more time, that you had your opportunities, you had your chances, and realizing that you didn't take them. To me, that's a fate worse than death. And so as I reflect on this newsletter and I reflect on my life and choices and decisions, I think it's something that we can all kind of look forward to. It's a subconscious thought that we all have, where we're going to be at the end of our life and what we're going to think about and how we're going to reflect. But I think it's something more than that, and it can really be a motivator forward, a waypoint, something to guide you moving through life. This idea that yes, life is fickle and it's finite. And for all of us, at some point, we're going to be at the end of our rope, and our time will be up. And how do you want to be and feel in that moment? What conversations do you want to have with yourself or with some 24-year-old kid who is fresh out of rehab volunteering at your hospice center? Food for thought. Thank you.
Hello, Ava Health.